before. So you've come across data modeling, you've heard the word data modeling, just type yes, you've never, this is your first time hearing the word data modeling, and also share that as well. Okay. So have we heard the word data modeling before? Anybody? Any taker? The tutor that taught yesterday talked about it a bit. Okay, what's the name of the tutor? Okay, so I can see Flourish hand is up. So I think Flourish wants to speak. So Flourish, do you have anything to say about data modeling? Flourish, yeah. So do you have anything to say about data modeling, or do anybody else have? So okay, so I'm hearing that the tutor talked about it a bit yesterday. So what did she say? Because I believe that was Esther, right? What did Esther say about data modeling, or what did you understand by data modeling? Okay, so data modeling is creating, connecting a relationship between two or more tables. Okay, well, I agree with that a bit. I agree with that a bit. But any other contrary opinion? Okay, okay. So with that being, like, I can't see any other opinion. So what's data modeling? Now, when we are talking of data modeling, now this is a material I've created some couple of years back, and it's actually on the Discord channel, but we will share it again because I don't think you new people have access to it. So first of all, what's data modeling? It's the process of creating a visual representation of how data is structured, organized, and related to one another in a system. It involves dividing tables, relationships, and constraints to ensure data accuracy and integrity. That is data. This, in short, is what data modeling is all about. Now, when we are talking of in context to Power BI, what we majorly even do is not really data modeling, it's a branch of data modeling called dimensional modeling. Dimensional modeling, not necessarily data modeling. And the reason why I say dimensional modeling, not necessarily data modeling, is in the sense of when you are doing data modeling, one thing you're thinking of is in sense of storage. You're looking of how to optimize your tables for better storage. Storage. That's how you're thinking of data modeling. Now, dimensional modeling is a part of data modeling. So when you're focused for analysis purposes, how best to present your tables for analysis purposes. Now, I will just be taking us through some terms before we go into the live demo we have today. Now, these terms are we, like I said, we have the access to this document, so we can always retrieve it. So, what are data types? Data types are your categories. These are information such as your number, text, and more. Your numeric data type, and you have your categorical data type. Then we have your tables, which are terminologies which you have to know. Then we have something called relationships, and we have keys, which I'll be talking to as we proceed in this session. And we have terms called normalization and denormalization, which I'll be talking about in this session as we progress. So First of all, the first question which is key for us to know is why do we need to do data modeling in Power BI? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do Control N to open a new Power BI file. If you don't already have a previous Power BI file, I want you to just open a new Power BI file. You can go to Power BI on your system and open Power BI desktop. I can just come here, search for Power BI desktop, and I can open Power BI desktop. Now, before we go on, I know yesterday's class was like an introduction to Power BI, so I want to just test what we remember from yesterday's class. So by default, how many views do you have on your Power BI? How many views do we have on our Power BI? So I like my session to be interactive. So please, if if we are interactive, we'll finish. We may even finish before 4, hopefully. So please, let's just dedicate this time to learn. And once we do that, the knowledge is taken easy. So how many views, when you open Power BI, how many views do you have in your Power BI? Do we understand the question? Do anybody understand the question of it? Okay, so I can see message from Flourish is saying 3 views. Okay. Any other contrary opinion? Okay, I'm seeing 4. I'm seeing 2. Okay. I'm seeing 4. Report relationship data. Okay, so I think what I'll ask is for us to name it, for us to name those 3 views, because I'm seeing a different name. Okay, so I'm seeing Flourish, report view, table view, model view. I'm seeing report view, data view, model view. Okay, so let me give you guys a clue. So the answer is between Flourish, Bankole, Flourish and Bankole. So I want us to vote. So just give a reaction to if you think it's Flourish, just give a thumbs up. If you think it's Bankole, give a thumbs up. So let me see how many of us uh, were paying attention in the last class. So is it between Flourish and Bankole? Yeah. So I'm seeing votes. So I can see 2 for Bankole, 3 for Bankole, 4 for Bankole. Flourish, are you sure you did not offend these people? 5 for Bankole. Wow. Okay, I'm seeing 5 for Bankole, and I'm not seeing any for Flourish. Okay. Okay, so I want us to look at my screen right now. So when I hover around my Power BI, what's the first one? Report view, right? When I come here, what's the second one we have here? Table view. And when I come to this place, the third one we have here is the model view. So technically, Flourish is actually correct, but technically Bankole is not wrong. The only thing is Bankole's Bankole's response was how Power BI was before. So before Power BI was report view, it was called data view, not table view, and we had model view. But Power BI has been updated and now it's referred to as report view, report view, table view, then model view. That Flourish was actually the one that was correct in this instance. Now, so what does that mean? It shows to let us know that Power BI and data in general, they keep on updating things, they keep on changing things. So if you are behind the time, now it doesn't mean that what this table or data view could do before has changed. It hasn't changed. It's still the same thing. But if you are not up to date, you will find yourself lost or confused when you open Power BI again. Now, for mine, how many of us can see these two other views on your Power BI? How many of you can see these two other views on your Power BI? Dash query view and TMDL view. Who can you see those two other views on your Power BI? You see one, so I'm guessing maybe it's the Dash query view, right? Like only the Dash query view, only the Dash query view. Okay, so yes, I suspected some of us if we may not even see the dark query view, but like we don't really need this view for now. But it's nice to have. We don't. You may not really need this dark query view right now. It depends on who is going to come and teach you guys darks, which will be tomorrow. If you want you guys to install to have it or not. But what I'll just show us is how do we get these views on our Power BI. So first of all, by default, for us to know, it's important we note what version of Power BI we are using. And for us to know what version of Power BI you are using, just come to the help, come to about, and you see it will give you the details on the month and the year of your Power BI. Month and year of the Power BI. My Power BI itself is even slightly out of date. I've not updated it in a while, but it's even supposed to update. Automatically update, but I can probably update it from the store. So you should, as far as you're on 2025, you should most likely be good. Most likely be good. But if you are below like 2025, general rule of thumb is if you download your Power BI from Microsoft Store, it's normally automatically updates for you, unless if you make a setting to make sure it doesn't update by default for yourself. So you can, if you download it from Microsoft Store, it updates for you. Now, why is this version important? There are certain things that you cannot do on older version of Power BI that you can do on newer versions of Power BI. And how can you find those things out? In your Power BI interface, if you click on the file, click on about, if you click on options, sorry, not about, if you click on options and settings, and you click on options, and you click on options, you should see a section for all these tabs on my screen. Now, these are some of the settings you can make to your Power BI, desktop. Now, for the most part of what you'll be doing, especially as beginners or maybe slightly early intermediate, you may not really need to change most of these features unless if you have a problem. So the data load, the default which was set for Power BI, it's normally okay, unless, like I said, unless if you're trying to load something crazy and you're having a problem. That's when you have to come to change this setting. Your Power Query Editor, there are a lot of things you can display. The query setting pane, data preview, all of this. Like I said, the default setting is fine. You don't have to change anything. Now, when I scroll down, the aspect which is of importance to you, especially, is you have regional settings. which is good because if you need to change the language that you are using or the location you are using, you can set it from this regional setting. And you have a place called preview features. Preview features. If I click on these preview features, I'll be able to see new features Power BI released for has released over the past month. Now, Microsoft Power BI as well as Excel and a whole load of Microsoft products release updates every single month. Like every single month, they release updates to the software. And under these preview features, you get to see some new features that have been added to Power BI, like new things you can do, like there's a new card visual, new text visual, and this allows you to create new interactive, maybe visualization or storytelling with your data. Now, part of these new things, you see something called TMDL view. So you see this TMDL view, and you see something called DAX query view as well, which you can select that. But I think that screen view is no more a preview feature. They've made it a main feature in Power BI now. So once you click on OK to ask you to restart your system, all you just have to do is restart and you should be good. Okay, somebody said I should zoom into my system. Is this better? Is this better or is still not clear? Okay. So that's with the preview features of Power BI. Now, just a quick recap. What do we do on this table view in Power BI? What do we do in this table view in Power BI? Just want to see how much we know before I proceed. And what do we do in the report view in Power BI? To view the imported data. Okay, so I can see to view the imported data. Okay, there's slightly more settings we can do, but the general idea is to view the imported data, which is true. Okay, for the model view, what do we do in this view of our data? Okay, this is where we create relationship between the tables. Okay, so that's superb and that's good. It's good that we're aware of that. So so what we have to do now is we want to do data modeling in Power BI, and I wanted to show us why data modeling is largely important in Power BI. Now, so how many of us still have the data set which we worked with in SQL? So if I'm aware, you guys worked with the marketing data in SQL, these data sets. How many of us still have it on our SSMS? How many of us still have this on our database? How many of us still have this file on our database, this marketing data set on our database? I'm seeing reactions. So please, like I said, feedback is important. Let's drop it in the chat. Yes, yes. If you don't have it, you can just let me know. So we will largely be working this this data set because I know a lot of us already have it in our database. That's what I was told. So it will make learning a lot easier. Okay, so I'm saying yes, yes. Okay, that's good. Now, if you don't have it, the back file will be shared again. Will be shared on Discord maybe later today. That's the back file to restore the database. Will be shared on Discord again later. But for you, the moment you have this file, now, if you remember, I'm sure yesterday Esther must have showed you how to connect data, get data from different sources, right? He must have showed you how to bring data from maybe an Excel document, which is what you worked with, and how to do some simple data cleaning activities. That was taught yesterday, right? I mean, that was okay. Yeah. So So today, what we are going to be doing is we are going to be bringing data an SQL database, from an SQL database. Now, for this, I'm using SSMS. The process is largely the same for other relational database, but if you are using maybe Postgres, it may just involve a slight tweak, or you are using MySQL. But if you are using SSMS, you won't have any idea. So what you just need to do, so let me search. Under this, you can do get data, search for, you can come to database, you see all the list of database you have, or you can search for the database. If your database is in Postgres, you can do import from Postgres. If it's in MySQL, you can try to get from that, or if it's in any of these other sources, you can try to get from them. My database is in SQL Server. This SQL Server refers to Microsoft SQL Server. I'll select this and click on Connect. Now, what do I have to provide for this? So if I come to my SSMS, what I just need to provide is the server name. How can I get the server name? Under my SSMS, I can just click on properties, and I can copy the server name of my laptop. So once I copy the server name, just come here, paste the server name. The database, what database am I connecting to? So this is the name of the database. I can click on rename, Control C, select the database, come here, Control V. Now, if you notice, if you observe from my screen, we have two options. Two options. This refers to import mode, and we have something called direct query. We have import mode and we have direct query. What do these two mean? What do these two mean? Now, to explain what these two mean, so first of all, I'm going to bring the data in direct query. Then I'll kind of show you the difference between the two. Now, under this section, if you can see, I have a section called SQL statements, optional, requires database. What this means is that if I don't want to bring all the data in the database, maybe I just want to bring a query, maybe select star, maybe I just want to do maybe something like this. For instance, I just want to bring the result of this. I can copy this and I can come here and I can paste it under the SQL statement. So instead of bringing all the tables I have in that database, it should just bring a view of that result. So, but I wouldn't do that now. I'm just going to do direct query and I'm just going to click on OK. I'm going to click on OK. The moment I click on OK, you can see now I can see all the tables I have in that database. So for this database, we are going to be working with the dev schema. So I know in your SQL class, you did a staging and you have a development schema. If you remember, the difference between your staging and your development schema was that your staging schema is where you just loaded your data in. Your development schema, you did some transformation in your database. If I'm correct, right? Those are the process you did. So in this step, I'll be selecting only the dev schema. The dev schema are all the tables that have dev on them. Select this, select this, select this, select this, select this, select this, and select this, and select this. Now I have two options. I can click on load and I can click on transform data. Transform data. Now let me just click on transform, maybe for the purpose of this demo. Let me just show you guys what transform data will do. So when I click on transform data, this opens what we call, do you remember what this is called? What editor this is called? Hope I'm not going too fast. Hope we can see my screen. You can hear me clearly. I'm not going too fast. Is the pace okay? Can you hear me clearly? And can you see my screen clearly? Okay, Power Query. Okay. So Power Query. Now, if I do something right now, I'm sure maybe Esa took you through some transformation in Power Query as well. So I'm not really going to be taking that. Okay, let me show you guys one transformation which you can do in Power Query. I don't know if that was covered before. So right now we have a date column here, this dev calendar. I can select this calendar, this column. I can click on add columns. And under these add columns, I can select this date. And maybe I want to see just the year of this column. I can click on year. I can select this date again. Maybe I want to see the month. I can click on month. And this creates the month number. I can select this date. Maybe I want to see the month name. Click on name of month. It shows it as the name of month. So can you see this error which we just got? So it says this step results in a query that is not supported in direct query. So let me remove this one for instance. And I'll be showing us why we may have to use imports instead of direct query. But I'm just going to show just that. Now, the moment I've done all of this, if I go to my view tab, and for you to see all the transformation you've done in Power Query. Now, just to do a bit of explanation on Power Query, like I said, I'm sure Power Query must have been explained a bit to you guys, but I would like to go over things to recap Power Query. Power Query is an ETL tool. What's an ETL tool? ETL tool does three things: extract data, transform data, and it loads data to your end system. Now, Power Query is created in a type of drag and drop interface, a low-code type interface. But every single action you do on Power Query is stored in a program is being written for every single thing you do on Power Query. A program is being written by something called the advanced editor. So if you click on the advanced editor, this is where you can see the language going into Power Query, going into Power Query. And under this language, you can see the language here, which we are seeing here is the M language. This M language is called mashup language in Power Query. So every single step I did, it is it's it's doing the step for us right here. So that's called the M language. Now, when I click on, after maybe I just do this for the sake of this demo, and I'm going to click on home, close and apply, and I close and apply the data. Now, I want to be sure, I want to see who is actually like really observing what's going on my screen. After I clicked on close and load for the data, how many views do we have here on this our data set? How many views do we have on our Power BI? Did the views increase, reduce, or remain the same? Okay, so I can see it's reduced, right? So yeah, if it said it's reduced, yes, it's reduced. So which view can't you see again once I clicked on close and apply? So yes, the table view. And the reason why we can't see the table view is because we clicked on something called direct query mode. Now, what's the difference between import and direct query mode? If so, what I will do is I'm going to come to this model view, and I will even show us why we need to start creating relationships and things like that. But first of all, when I click on one of the table, for instance, we can, if I scroll down and I click on advanced, and I click on advanced, you have a section called storage mode. Storage mode. And if I click on the drop down, you can see I have three types of storage mode. I have something called direct query, import, and you have dual. You have dual storage mode. Now, what does this mean? Now, this information is especially important when you have to load data from a database or from a live connection, from a data warehouse, a database. You have to load data into Power BI. Now, there are normally three storage modes. If you are loading an Excel file, it won't ask you for the storage mode because by default, Power BI will do something called import mode. What is import mode? What is direct query or what's live connection mode? For import mode, what Power BI will do is all these tables that we brought into Power BI right now and all this little transformation we did into Power BI. Let me see if I can go back to this my SQL table. This even see this depth calendar. So all these tables that we can see right now on our screen, we have various tables which we have the SQL version for them. In direct query, what direct query mode does is that by default, when Power BI loads this data, Power BI is loading it directly from the source. What I mean is Power BI is not storing a version of the data in its memory. For import mode, which is the default Power BI does, is that Power BI will take the data from wherever the data is, let's say the SQL database, it will store a version of the data. It will like archive a version, it will store a version of the data, and it will now load the data into the system. So every time you refresh the data, it's storing in a new version of the data and it's loading in the data. But in the case of direct query, you are getting the data pulling directly from the source of the data. You're pulling directly from the source of the data. And what that means is you won't be able to see table view, because the reason why you can see table view or data view in your Power BI is because Power BI is storing it as a version, like a copy of the data that you can see. That's why when you load data from Excel, from CSV, generally those ones are import directly. Power BI is not connecting to data live. It's connecting to the data, yes, but it's storing a version of the data. So each time you refresh the data, it's updating that version of data that it's stored. But for direct query, it's connecting to the data as it is, and it's automatically like loading the data. Now, direct query and import mode has its advantage and disadvantage. Now, the advantage or disadvantage with direct query, for instance, it has latency issue. That's a disadvantage of direct query. For example, every time I click on maybe a visual, I click on something in my data set, it takes a longer bit of time because Power BI we have to go to the database to fetch the information which I'm looking for. Power BI we have to go to whatever database is stored and fetch the information which I'm looking for. So which it will end up bringing at the end of the day, but it will take, in terms of latency, it will take a while to get that. But in terms of updates, if you want up to date data, direct query has the advantage in that aspect because you're kind of connecting to the data source live. So it's so instead of Power BI storing the version of the data, and each time you click on refresh, you want the data to be updated. For direct query mode, the data will kind of already be up to date, but it will take a long time to see, depending on your data size, it may take a longer bit of time to see your data showing at the end of the day. At the end of the day. So you have a mode called dual. What dual means is that one of your table can be in import mode while the others are in direct query. And this is important when you want to maybe create a relationship between a table in import and a table in direct query mode. You need to connect those two tables together. I hope I'm not, I hope we are following, and hope I'm not confusing anybody. Are we following? Let me just be sure. Room check. Are we following? Are we following? Did you get that explanation of direct query and import mode? Are we following? Are we following? Or okay, thank you. Thank you. Okay. So just to reverse back, so I want to one thing that which is important so that we understand this concept before we start doing anything is When I first connected to the database, our SQL database, it asked me for a storage mode. If I click on this, maybe for instance, and click on the property, click on advanced, it asks me for a storage mode. What this storage mode is asking you is how you want Power BI to be able to retrieve this information into your report or into your visualization. So I said by default there's normally like two storage modes that you have. Two, you have three depending on the use case scenario. Now, the two modes which you have is import and direct query. Now, if you are working with flat files, Excel files, CSV directly, they are not in databases or anything. It will do, Power BI will do import mode for you by default. Import mode is the basic version which Power BI will do for you by default. And what import mode will mean is Power BI will go to that Excel file that you have, let's say a CSV file you have, it will retrieve the information, create a copy in Power BI's engine. It will create a copy of that information in Power BI engine to store that information. So anytime you request for, maybe you want to do a quick analysis of the data, it doesn't have to go back to retrieve the information again. That is import mode. It doesn't have to go back to retrieve the information again. But if the information in the Excel, for example, is updated, like it's updated, that means maybe you've added a new row to the Excel, then you have to click on a refresh so that it can go back to retrieve the information again, to retrieve the latest information. So that is import mode by default. And that's what Power BI does by default for most of the storage mode, import mode. Now, for direct query, what you are saying is you don't want Power BI to store a version of the data for you. You want Power BI to just pull the data as it is, just connect to the data as it is. So anytime you want to see a report or anytime you want to read any analysis, you want Power BI to use its memory or power to go back to the data set to retrieve that information for you. That is direct query or live connection mode. So what you are saying is you want Power BI to go back to wherever the data is and retrieve the information for you. Power BI is not saving any record of the information in memory. And that's why you don't have something called the table view in your Power BI. So in table view, when you do direct query, but if it's in import view, Power BI is storing all these tables. Power BI will store a version of them inside Power BI. It will store a version of them inside Power BI. So anytime you want to see a simple report, it doesn't have to to go back to the database to see the report, But if the report is updated, by updated, I mean you add a new row of information, maybe you add a new row, maybe there's a new transaction, then you have to go back to retrieve that new information. I hope that's clear now. Yes, you can say we have three ways. So we also have live connection. Live connection, especially when you want to do something called analysis, when you're working with analysis service in Power BI. Now that's another, it's not for the scope of this for this class analysis services, but it's a nice thing to note why they use analysis service. Analysis service is also to try and solve the issue of using like direct query as well and import. But I just wanted you guys to know the general concept between the two. Now, one thing that is important to note is we can change from direct query to dual or import, but you cannot change from import to direct query. What this means is this dev calendar table, for example, if I click on this and I change it to import, what it will show me is that setting the following, Please consider them carefully. Setting storage mode to import is irreversible option. You will not be able to switch back. The operation will refresh table set to import, which may take time depending on factors such as data volume. Click on OK. And the moment I do this dev calendar will automatically become an import mode data set, and Power BI will create a copy of that data set. Can you see rows loaded? The moment I've done that, if you notice, if I come to this place, you can see my table view is available just for this import data set. I will only be able to see this dev calendar. I won't be able to see the remaining, because see, the remaining tables are not showing because they are not in import mode. So this dev calendar, Power BI will create a copy of the data set for us. So the next thing, I can change all of this data to import mode for the sake of this class. The both modes have their benefits and they have their demerits. But generally, one rule of thumb so that we can notice that if what you want to do, if you want your report to probably be loading, if you are not dealing with maybe updated data as it's updating, or new information as you want the data to be seeing the new information as it's updating from the back end, and you want your report to perform in an optimal or fast manner, import mode is normally faster, because your Power BI doesn't have to be going to retrieve the information from the database as itself. But if you need your data set to be, I don't want to use the word real time, but to be sort of updated, pulling the information from the database directly, then you go for direct query method. So, but I'll be changing all of this to import, because import mode, so that we don't have any issue with performance. And I'll click on OK. Also, there are some transformation steps, like the error we saw in Power Query. There are some transformation steps which you cannot do in direct query mode, because each time you do it in direct query mode, it's like you writing the SQL code from the back end. From the back end. So, but I'll let this load first. So I'm just going to change most of these tables into the import mode, so that I could get the same error. Also, because you'll be storing the file directly in Power BI, the file size will be larger. Your Power BI file size will be larger in import mode as well. So that's also one thing for us to note in modeling in Power BI. The type of storage mode you have is a question which, if you are going for interviews, especially maybe slightly not to beginner roles, they will most likely ask you what's the difference between your import and direct query, when you should use import, when you should use direct query. So having proper knowledge of that will likely help you as well. So so back to class. So let me just let this load. Then I do the dev store and do the dev transformation. So I've loaded all the data into the Power BI. Now that I've loaded the data in, right? So why is creating relationship important? So right now, what I'm going to do is, let's say I want to see the report I want to see our customer and maybe our top selling customer and the transaction they made. I'll select the full name of our customer and I'll select our transactions. Maybe I'll select our quantity. Let me use quantity for example. The total quantities that these our customers make. Now, when I see this as a table in my Power BI, who can observe what's going on right now? When I show this our customer and this and transaction as a table, are we saying that this is the total quantity each of the customer bought? Yeah, I want us to just take a moment to look at it. Sorry, this is blocking us. So just take a moment to look at it. Is this supposed to be the right value which we see? Don't see our sales by a customer. So why are we getting this same result? Now, if we were to do this in SQL, and it's kind of good that you've done SQL class before, I want people that really paid attention to the SQL class to tell me how did you go about answering that question. We want to say our top 10, maybe our top selling customer, or you want to say our customer's transaction, customer quantity, the quantity requested by a customer. Sorry, how would you do that? So any SQL guru in the house willing to quickly volunteer? Anybody, anybody? Ah, don't follow. Wait, let me see. Good. Or should I ask for share if you didn't teach people SQL? I'm sure they, yeah, you guys did SQL now. So nobody wants to take up the challenge. Anybody in the audience? You can just try. Don't worry. If you are not on track, correct you. So anybody in the audience. So I said I want to see. So we all are familiar with these data sets, right? These are the data sets which we worked on for for SQL, right? I just restored the data set, maybe market. So I said you want to see customers and the quantities that they bought, they requested for. How would you go about doing this in SQL? Okay, so Flourish, you can I have unmuted your mic before, so you want to put me to how you do that? So just quickly. So any Flourish or anybody in the chat, anybody wants to put me to how you do that? I'm pretty sure we've done SQL class, right? Anybody wants to try? So I'm saying select customer quantity group by customer order. So let's look at this table first. Let me even show us the table. This transactions table. Select this transaction table, right? This transaction table. Now we have customers table here. So I'll just let me see if I'll so we have customer table here. So I want to see the full name, the customer full name and the quantity that they did. So the customer full name and the quantity, the total quantity that the particular customer did. So how can I do that? You can just so I've not even seen something like close to what I'm looking for. There's something we are missing in this SQL code before, or should that be assignment before we go to go to do it? So think, okay, so somebody has finally built the class. Exactly. That's what I was looking for. So I can see two people have said it exactly. That's what I was looking for. So we need to do what? We need to join. So your query, it should still give us maybe the full result which we are looking for. I think there should still be a group by somewhere. But yeah, you are still on track. That we will know, sir. So the key thing which you need to do is we need to do what? We need to join the customer table and the transaction table. Yeah, so we need to join the customer table and the transaction table. So I have a question now. For those of us who are not so clear with what I mean is, let me even just take this as quick. Let's see this. Now, why just select some of the stuff wouldn't work is because first of all, first of all, we have information in two different tables that we are looking for. I said we want to see the customer name. This should be name, no customer man. So this customer, let me say underscore name. And we want to get the customer name and the quantity, the total quantity from the dev cost customer table. This is the dev customer table, and store the name as this, just using um It's just using alias. Then we want to join it on the cost on with the transaction table, which is the dev transaction table. Now, why do we need to join this information? If we look at this transaction table like this, we have customer ID. Now, if I go to this customer table, we have customer ID. So essentially, for us to run that simple result which we wanted to do, what we just need to do is we want to be able to select both the customer name and the quantity field from the data by joining a field that is related to one another. And this field is what we call our keys. It's what we call our keys. I'm sure we did SQL, right? We did SQL, or is it that we did SQL, right? So one thing which we have in SQL is we have something, not even just in SQL, in data, we have something called primary and foreign keys. Primary and foreign keys. Now there's one key thing that we need to note for data modeling, but not one key thing. There are some key concepts which you need to note for data modeling. We have two, and especially data modeling in terms of Power BI, that's dimensional modeling. We have two types of table. We have our facts and we have our dimensions. So what are our dimensions and what are our facts? Our dimensions provide qualitative information. They provide descriptive information from our data sets. And what are our facts? Our facts provide quantitative information, basically things that we can measure from our data sets. So those are like our quantitative information. Now to make life easier, right? For the sake of this class, I think we don't need we when you are doing carrying this out, you don't need return. Just want to make it simple for us, and we don't need dev store revenue. We are just going to focus on transaction, store, and I'm just going to focus on these tables, for instance. We're going to focus on dev calendar, dev customer, dev product, dev region, and dev store, and dev transaction. So in our data set, I said we have, when it comes to data or dimensional modeling, there are two things we need to know. What are facts and what are dimensions in our data set? So how can you know what a fact is and what a dimension is? Just to confirm, can we all still hear me clearly? Am I moving at an okay pace? You can hear me clearly? You are following with the session? Okay.
I hear you.
Okay, that's good. Okay, that's good. So just to be clear, so let's take one thing I like to do is I like to try to relate it with real world situation a bit. Now, in a typical, let's say a typical organization, a typical supermarket or typical store, this is even a market data. A typical market data, when a customer comes into a market, right? When a customer comes into a market, probably at the back end, when you go to buy something from a supermarket, a store, you enter the back end system tracks your customer ID, the ID of your customer, the products that you bought, the amount of products you bought, and when you bought maybe the particular stock and when you did the particular transaction. When you did the particular transaction, that's what your that's what your system tracks. Now, if I want to know more information about the customer, about the customer, I need to check. Okay, let's say the customer came in and the customer bought the stuff. I need to find out. Okay, what's the name of the customer? Who is the customer in general? Where is he located? Where is he from? More details about the customer. And in this table, what information provides us with more information about the customer in this data set? More information tells us more information about the customer. Somebody said I should zoom in, and so is this better? I think this too zoomed. Is this better? Yeah. Andrew, so can you see it now? Is it better? Okay, dev customer. So dev customer tells us who our customer is. Now, if I have the question of, if I need to find out question of, okay, what products what product did our customer buy? What table tells us more information about the product? We have a dev product table. Dev product table. Now, if I want to find out when when did this transaction take place, or more information about the transaction, the month, the year, the maybe the day, the week or so, what table provides this information? You have your date table, your calendar table. Now, I'm sure as you progress, there are various ways to create date tables in Power BI. One is by loading in the date table yourself. Another is by using DAX, which maybe you may explore in the next session. Another way is by using Power Query to create a date table. But we loaded our date table. Maybe the instructor that will be coming in may use something else. Now, if I want to know where this transaction took place, what table provides us with that information? The region or our stored data kind of provides us with more information about where this transaction took took place. Took place. So there's one key concept which you need to note for data modeling, especially, and one key cheat code which I use all the time that helps me identify my facts and dimension is by knowing your 4 Ws. Most of the time, it's good to know your who. Most of the time, it's good to know your who in your text. Okay. Most of the time, so let's start this in. It's good to know your who in your data sets. I can't remove this. Your who, your what. Let me just type in this. Your what, your when, and your why. They call it the 4 Ws: who, what, when, why, where. Sometimes the where is sorry, who, what, when, where. Then sometimes you have 5 Ws, which is why. Why? So ideally, in your data model, your tables will be speaking to your who. Most of the times, you have tables speaking to who. Who in this instance could be who in this instance could be a customer table. Our what is giving us more information about our product. So it could be our product table. Our when is giving us more information about the date, and it could be our date, our calendar. It's giving us more information about our date, could be our calendar table, and where is giving us more information about where the transaction took place. So this is a concept of data modeling, considering your dimensions. Your dimensions provide more information about what happened. They provide more information about your transaction. So if we are saying somebody just came to make a purchase in our store, you need to find out more information about those details. You have your dimensions that provide information about your details. And this type of model which we have is a model called, I've not started linking things together, but it's a concept called star schema. Now, how can we create a relationship? Creating relationship is the easiest thing you can do in Power BI, but you need to understand properly the concept of relationship. I can select this product ID from this product table to this product ID in this dev transaction table, and I have this interface pops up. Now, if you look at this relationship type, what this relationship type shows is the cardinality. What cardinality means is the direction in which the relationship is going. Like, what is it one to many? Is it many to many? Is it one to one? That is what is speaking towards. Now, what does one to many mean? What does many to many? What does one to one mean? So if you see, these are kind of like the option. You have many to one. It's still kind of like one to many, but it just depends on how your table are arranged. So let me focus on what one to many is. Your dimensions should contain unique record. What do I mean by that? When I go to this product table, when I see product ID 4 is telling us is a particular record, product ID 4. The name I see, product ID 4 should not appear more than once in my dimension table, this product table. Because if you are thinking about it, a product ID that is 4 will not have more than, let's say, the product name should only be one. The product should also have only a particular SKIU. It should have a particular unique weight or product retail value. That's what the product ID should be. So every single thing in your dimension, your ID in your dimension table should be unique. Now, in this transaction table, this dev transaction, a particular product could have been bought more than once. Do we all agree with that? A particular product could have been bought more than once, could have been bought twice, 3 times, 4 times. But when I want to find out information about that product, I need a table to tell me the information of just that product. I need a row to tell me the information of just that product. But in your transaction table, which is called your facts, in this instance, is our fact table. Our fact table is providing us with information about what is going on in the business. Like a customer could have come more than once, a product could have been bought more than once, but it's keeping track of, oh, this product ID, what's the product ID of the particular customer, what's the customer ID of this customer, what's the quantity, what's the stock date, what's the store ID, what's the transaction date. And in this instance, the relationship which we have, because we only have one product ID here, unique record in this product ID, connecting to many occurrence on this product ID. We have a relationship called one to many. One to many. Then I'm going to click on save. Now you have something called cross filter. The default single is the one that makes the most sense. For some use cases, it will have both, but when you're having both, you're already starting to have problems. But single, what single means is that this table will be able to filter this dev transaction. When you have both, is that you're saying both tables should filter each other, which in most situations you don't want that. You want your dimension table to be what filters your fact table. And I'm going to click on save. So the moment I have this showing one to many, let me do the same for this customer because I think it's the customer that we did last time. I'm going to drag this customer to this customer ID. We have one to many. The same explanation. In this customer table tells me about the unique customer, just provide information about the customer load. What this transaction table on the other hand tells me this customer must have come like twice, 3 times to a particular store to buy something. So we have one to many. Now, in the case of one to one, now this relationship you may not really have this most of the time, but in the case of one to one, is a situation where you are saying one one record in this customer table is related to only one record in this transaction table. And in that instance, the relationship is not really needed because you are saying they are both unique in both tables. And that's in a ideal instance, you won't have that because a customer can most likely come more than once or twice in a in our facts table. So the relationship you will typically have from your dimension to fact in an ideal situation will be one to many type of relationship. I'm going to click on save. So the moment I've set this to one to many, if we go back to this our report view, if we go back to this our report view, can you see the data is no more repeating each other because it's basically doing like a join in our data set. It's joining those two tables based on the primary key that we have there. Now, back to this our data modeling. We have, I'm sure in SQL, maybe it was mentioned just to do a recap, we have things called primary and you have your foreign key. Your primary key is what uniquely identifies a record in your dimension table. So it's what uniquely identifies this customer in this particular table. What uniquely identifies that record in that particular table. Your foreign key is like what connects your primary, is what connects your primary. It's just like the connection between your primary key and your primary key between both tables. So your primary key typically in the case of dimensional modeling is in your dimension table and you have the foreign key in the other table as well. Sorry, bit tired. So back to data model. I can now connect this store ID to this store using the same one to many approach. Click on save. And the moment I do that, it creates a relationship between the data set. What this means is, if I showed you guys earlier, if I didn't create a relationship between this data and I just went ahead to start creating the report, I won't be able to check out things like maybe stores by transaction. Maybe I won't be able to see maybe store name by transaction amount. But the moment I set that relationship in my Power BI, the moment I set that relationship in my Power BI, it allows my model to work effectively. Effectively. So I can do the second last of date. So I can decide to connect this date to my transaction dates. Transaction dates, and I can click on save. And this will create a one-to-many. Now, there's one other concept which is important, but depending on your level of experience with Power BI, you may not face it now, but it's good to note is you also have something called active and inactive relationship. Now, what are situations where you may have an active and inactive relationship? Especially when you have more than one date, or maybe more than one date or 2 dates or 3 days, and you cannot decide which date is like your primary, is like your key date that you want to view for your transaction. You can have a situation of these dates in this table connecting to this stock dates again, but you setting this wouldn't be an active relationship again. This will be an inactive relationship. So if you have a particular analysis that you want to do based on just the stock date again, you can you can do that by making this connection between these two. But what will happen is, by default, your Power BI will use the active relationship, which is the transaction date, the date to the transaction date. But for you to use this inactive relationship, you have to use DAX, data analysis expression, by doing something called, there's a DAX formula called use relationship, use relationship. So I'm just showing us this. We can read up more on this. We may not need to do this for simple use case scenario, but when you have to do it for complex use case scenario, it's something that is important for for you to know as well. Now, when we end up connecting these tables together, we have something called a star schema. So a star schema is a type of relationship which our dimensions are connected to our facts table. As all our dimensions are connected to our fact table, and it forms a star-like shape at the end of the day. So this is a star schema-like approach. Now, if you observe, there's one table which I didn't connect to. I didn't connect to our fact table, which is our region table. Our region table. And this region table will also help me to explain the concept of snow, snowflake schema. Snowflake schema. So star schema is normally like the optimal approach of data modeling. It's what's normally like advised most of the time. People advise you to use a star schema. And why is the star schema important? Because it's simple. It how this table filters this your fact table in an easy manner. It's not complicated. It's not a complicated approach. But what a snowflake schema happen, and when you have a snowflake schema, is when you are dealing with a highly normalized, a slightly highly normalized table. And that brings me to the other concept which I want to talk about briefly in terms of normalization, denormalization, normalization and denormalization. Are we still following me? Hope I've not going too fast. Hope you can hear me clearly as well, because we'll soon be wrapping up. Watching
Yeah,
the
you're
time.
getting reactions. They can hear you and they're following.
Okay. Okay. So what is normalization and what's denormalization? So what normalization is, in the case of normalization, now most of the times, and this is also going to be maybe an assignment if I have the time, I will give it to you guys to do. Most of the times you may be given data all in a flat file. I don't know how many of us, maybe you've downloaded the data set and all the data set, you have maybe 20 columns, 30 columns. You know the difference between rows and columns. That you have all the data kept in a large flat file. Large flat file. That is a highly denormalized table. So when we are talking of normalization, we are generally talking of like the concept of splitting a huge table into different different tables. It's normally better for maybe storage, for storage capacity, also for maybe faster queries as well, maybe to reduce the storage size and also to reduce redundancy. That's repetition. So that's why we often at times do something called normalization. Now, this data set is normalized by default. All these tables is possible, and maybe it's even a classwork you guys can do is, it's possible we can combine all these fields all in one table, all of these columns to all be in one table. That is possible. So that's going to be highly denormalized, all the fields in one table. Now, in that instance, the file size will be larger when you do something like that. The storage size will be larger, the storage request will be larger, and you have a lot of redundancy. But in a normalized system, you have tables split into the specific portion, like the customer. We have, instead of storing all this information of the customer in this transaction table, we created a separate table for the customer. Instead of storing all the information of products in this transaction table, created a separate table for products. Now, why am I explaining this for Snowflake schema? Snowflake schema is like, instead of, now for this is a star schema uses this approach as well. But instead of us, this dev region, we can combine this dev region to be part of this store, in the sense that sales district and sales region will be part of this store data. You can do it by maybe merging, doing union or something. You can combine this data to be part of this, right? You can do that, or doing a join rather. You can combine the data to be part of this store. But for Snowflake schema, you have a case of the tables are highly separated, like highly normalized, in the sense of, instead of combining this data to all be stored in this table, you have a dimension filtering another dimension before it filters the fact. So what do I mean by this? I can click on this region ID and connect to this region ID which we have here, and click on save. Now, in this instance, if I want to see our sales district, this table will filter this table before it filters this table. So this is a Snowflake schema, in the sense of a dimension filtering a dimension before you go to a fact. Your normal star schema, you have your dimensions filtering your facts directly. But a Snowflake schema, because of how the table is designed, you may have a situation of, you have your dimension first filtering the dimension, because this region ID, this tells the way you can solve Snowflake schema is, you can decide to this dev region. You know what? There's no real point having this as a separate table. You can decide to do some denormalize this data, denormalize in the sense of split all these records instead of having them in separate table, you can have them in this dev store table to make it a perfect star schema. A perfect star schema is in the sense of your dimension directly filters your data, your fact data. Now, why is data modeling largely important? Proper understanding of data modeling can significantly reduce the amount of DAX you will have to do. And DAX is the next topic you guys are going to be doing. DAX is a type of language in Power BI called data analysis expression. Now, if you do not model your data well, you can be writing DAX for weeks and you'll not still be getting the right results. So it's important to note how to classify your dimension, how to classify your facts, what is your primary key, what are your foreign keys in your data, and how to avoid creating a complex data model. So this is just like an overview. This is an overview of data modeling as well. I'll try to share maybe some supporting content to help with our learning. But with these few things, I think I would like to say take us off for today. So right now, before I go, I'll quickly be taking any questions. Do anybody have any question, any comment? Hope we learned something today, and hope you enjoyed today. Okay.